What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here, and welcome to our daily show where we discuss the fourth stimulus check update, what's going on with the United States, Washington, D.C., money, investing, and this next stimulus package, which has been announced at $3.5 trillion and is in the House of Representatives, and the next infrastructure package, which is $1.2 trillion and is expected to be voted on this Monday, the 27th, which is now in 4 days. And that is that's a very hot spot because we have some moderate Democrats that are saying if it's not voted on, then they're not going to vote for the stimulus package. And then we have some progressive Democrats that are saying if the stimulus package is not passed before the physical infrastructure package on Monday, that they're going to vote no on the physical infrastructure package, which is expected to be voted on Monday. All this, and we have a government shutdown that is going to happen on September 30th at midnight, which is now less than a week away, or about a week away. And we have the government debt limit, which is if it's not raised or suspended, which has to be voted on by Congress one way or another, the government will run out of money at some point in October, says Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. And that is the worst one of them all because that has never happened. That the government will default if that happens. The government needs to do that just to pay the interest alone on all the past debt that the government has and to be able to issue new money and to pay for anything the government has to do with any money for the government going forward. Yeah, it's a very, very crucial situation we have going right now. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be having several different interviews on the show today. Also, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer say they have a deal regarding the next stimulus package. We'll be hearing from them on the show here. You'll hear it directly from them. So you know everything you hear is true because it's not, I'm making it up. You'll be hearing it directly from them regarding details on the next stimulus package. We got a lot to talk about here, and as well as a new announcement regarding booster shots from the FDA. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot going on in here in our country. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. It's completely free to do so you don't miss out on new videos. New videos come out here on our channel every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you find these videos helpful, don't forget to hit the like button for us down below. The FDA has authorized Pfizer's COVID booster shots for people 65 and older and other vulnerable Americans. But note, the FDA is not the final go-ahead. And that is expected to be voted on tomorrow by the CDC. The CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee has scheduled a 2-day meeting this week when the agency's panel of experts is expected to vote on plans to distribute the third shots. Before the 2 votes on Friday, which came in late afternoon, some committee members said that they were concerned that there wasn't enough data to make a recommendation. So the FDA has authorized the Pfizer booster shot for those 65 and older and other vulnerable Americans. But this is not the final go-ahead, and that is expected to be voted on tomorrow. So I will keep you updated on the situation. Next up, the stimulus package, $3.5 trillion stimulus package, is in the House of Representatives. Here is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on the stimulus package. She's the leader of the House, and here's a lot of details here going on with the House. And then we'll be hearing from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer on a deal that was just made. Check this out.
We are in a situation of lamb eat lamb. There's so many good provisions. What is affordable and what is effective and what gets the best results as soon as possible. So we made great progress this morning because it's in the writing. You know, you hear everybody coming out and talking about one thing or another, but we are writing legislation. And when you're writing legislation, you have to be specific. And this what took us a long way to a framework. Now, again, we always socialize what we're doing and see among some things what works better and what our actual needs will be. We'll get more estimates as to how much money comes in on certain things, but we know that we can cover the proposal that the president has put forth to build back better, his vision for our country, well beyond the BIF, the budget what are we calling it, bipartisan infrastructure framework. I'm very excited about this. And again, it's all good. We had appropriations, saying in appropriations, it's lamb eat lamb. But let me just tell you that, as you know, this week we passed legislation to keep government open and lift the debt ceiling to remove all doubt that the full faith and credit of the United States of America is not in question, as the Constitution of the United States says. The Congress has taken up a tradition of having to vote on that. There's some doubt as to whether that should be the case, but in the here and now, we put forth a proposal. The Senate, the House Republicans voted against keeping government open, which we need to do by September 30th, and voted against honoring the full faith and credit of the United States of America. It's quite appalling because when Republican presidents were there, we always had bipartisan support for that. We sent that bill over to the Senate. Depending on what happens there, we will keep government open by September 30th, which is our date, and continue the conversation about the debt ceiling.
So Nancy Pelosi says that we have lammy lamb. Yeah, we have lammy lamb. Interesting phrase there. But a couple things going forward here. Nancy Pelosi has signaled she won't move the $3.5 trillion stimulus package without a Senate-House deal. Okay, number one, she's basically saying here that she won't put the stimulus package on the floor until she's certain that it will pass, which kind of makes sense. She's basically saying here that she won't put it forward till she knows that Joe Manchin will pass or vote yes, and that all the Democrats in the House will put it forward and vote for it. So basically, they're going to go to all the senators on the Democratic side and make sure that they're all going to vote yes, they're all in agreement, and all the House Democrats are going to vote yes, make sure they're all in agreement. This makes sense. I mean, this is only a reasonable idea. So we'll have to see how this plays out. So I'll keep you updated on this. Of course, here's Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer with a deal announcement. Check this out.
The White House, the House, and the Senate have reached agreement on a framework that will pay for any final negotiated agreement. So the revenue side of this, we have an agreement on. Okay? Thank you. The framework, an agreement of a framework.
So to be clear there, that's why I like to show you guys, it coming directly from their mouth. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, and the White House have announced that they have a deal on the tax framework to pay for the $3.5 trillion package. Here's some more details. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer on Thursday morning announced that the Senate, the House, and the White House have reached a deal on a framework to pay for the massive human infrastructure spending package, aka you know it as the stimulus package, that they hope to pass this fall. It's already fall, under the budget reconciliation process. Quote, the White House, the House, and the Senate have reached an agreement on a framework that will pay for any final negotiated agreement. So the revenue side of this, we have an agreement on, said Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, announced at a joint press conference with Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Schumer briefed reporters on the details of the agreement after the press conference. Quote, we have had a meeting with Secretary Yellen and the White House people, myself, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Chairman Neal, and Chairman Wyden. And we reached an agreement on the framework menu of options that will pay for any final negotiated agreement. So basically, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi have apparently reached a deal that they have not given us the specifics on, but they are confident that this package will be paid for, fully paid for. So we'll have to see when the Congressional Budget Office scores this. The Congressional Budget Office is basically like a bunch of people in a room that go over the math of the details of the package. Say, okay, this is paid for, this is paid for, the tax revenue, how much tax revenue is paying for the package. Okay, we're raising taxes on corporations. Okay, get the calculators out. Okay, we're raising taxes on people making over $400,000. Let's calculate how much money that brings in. Okay, we have leftover stimulus money. Okay, let's calculate that out. Okay, we have money over here, money over here. Okay, how much is the package going to cost? And they're going to calculate how much this is going to cost, how much the Medicare benefits are going to cost, how much the stimulus provisions are going to cost, and then they're going to do the math and then figure it all out. So, yeah. Meanwhile, we have a government shutdown that is going to happen in about 7 days on September 30th at midnight. And then we have the debt limit ceiling where the government is going to potentially default and literally run out of money if they don't come to an agreement to raise the debt ceiling. So without an agreement to raise the debt ceiling or suspend the debt ceiling, the government cannot print money or even pay interest on any of its past debt. And anything that has to do with the government issuing new money or sending out checks or anything like that, the government may or may not be able to do. And this is all somewhat in theory because the government has never defaulted before. So this has never happened before. It's kind of like talking about the end of the world. What would happen, if something happened? You don't really know because it's never happened before. So, it'd be like saying, what would happen if a government shutdown happened when it had never happened before? So it's a very, very difficult situation that we don't want to happen. In fact, here is former Treasury Secretary Jack Lew saying he's very, very worried about this. Check this out.
Mr. Secretary, we've been in this position 78 times or so since 1960 under Democratic and Republican presidents. We have never failed to raise or suspend the debt limit to pay our bills. Are you really worried this time could be different?
Well, good to be with you, Garrett. I'm always worried when we approach a deadline and we see a political fight where the extension of the debt limit is turned into a political weapon. We saw it escalate through the 90s, but really in 2011 to 2013 is when it became a clear strategy. It's a little different this time, and I think you have to unpack what people are saying. The Republicans in the Senate are saying they're not going to vote for the debt limit, and it has to pass with Democratic votes. What they're not saying is that they're not letting a majority vote to pass it. They're saying we're going to need 60 votes to pass a debt limit, which means they're going to filibuster it. If they're not going to vote for it, they should at least get out of the way and let Democrats vote for it.
Right. It's not just that they're voting against it. They want to make it as politically painful as possible for Democrats to raise it. It begs the question,
and that creates
though.
Peril. That creates peril because you don't know exactly when you need to raise the debt limit. It's always hard to predict. It's a function of revenue coming in and spending going out. Right now, we're at a moment where the economy is recovering from the COVID economic crisis. Revenues are coming in at a way that is not typical. We're not even opening all the mail promptly to open the checks on quarterly payments because we don't have enough people.
Doesn't that beg the question then? I understand the bad faith politics here, but doesn't that beg the question then that Democrats should just not mess around with this? They have the ability to do this through reconciliation. Given the risk factor here, should the president just say, you know what? Republicans, you're refusing to govern. We're just going to handle this because we don't want to play around with it.
Well, let's remember, reconciliation is not the typical way that the debt limit is raised,
but it's the way that it could be done. It could be done by Democrats alone if they decided to say the Republicans are refusing to govern, so we'll just do it.
Well, it's on its own track now, and it's not a simple matter to go back and enact a new set of budget rules that would permit that. Right now, that's going to come up for a vote. If this were on the level, Republicans would let Democrats vote for it. They would vote against it, and we wouldn't have a crisis. Let's remember what happens if you hit the moment where the debt limit doesn't leave you the room to borrow. It means you can't pay your bills. You might hear arguments saying we can pay some but not others. Well, for 232 years, the United States government has paid all its bills. And if you're defaulting on any of them, it undermines confidence. And we're not at a moment where that's a risk that should be taken. And we don't have a way to pick and choose between the different things the government spends money on. There would be long delays in making many payments if you ever went to an irresponsible approach like that.
Well, and that's the Democrats' argument here, is that we made decisions about what the government was going to spend money on when we spent money on it. So we ought to just raise the debt ceiling now. The question I have, too, here is we are the only country in the world that does it this way. We have raised the debt ceiling almost 100 times since we came up with the concept. It's clearly not holding down debt. It is a debt sunroof at best. Why shouldn't we just get rid of it altogether?
Look, I've long been an advocate in changing the way we handle the debt limit, going back as far as the 1980s. When I worked for Speaker O'Neill, we tried to make it an easier process so you wouldn't have these kinds of high wire acts. Since we reached the point in 2011 where the U.S. was downgraded by a rating agency, and we saw major money market funds dumping short-term treasuries not to hold anything with a maturity in the window, I think it's time to figure out a way to get beyond it. And I also want to point out, you said correctly that the debt limit reflects payments for past commitments. The reconciliation bill that's moving through Congress now is paid for. It's not the thing that's causing the debt limit to need to be raised. It's the tax cut in 2017. It's the spending on COVID. It's things that were passed either on a bipartisan basis or with Republicans mostly casting the votes.
Yeah.
I think if you look at what ought to be the place where the debate is happening now, it ought to be, how do we do things like reform the way we collect taxes in this country so that we actually collect the revenue that people owe? And there's a proposal
Former Secretary
that I'd love to talk about.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely absurd that they have to raise the debt limit ceiling every 1 to 2 years, depending on how long they agree to do it. And even as the Democrats are deciding if they're going to do it on their own, which they may have to because the Republicans are refusing to give a single vote to do it, they're only planning to do it until next year. So after the midterm elections in November of 2022, they're planning to raise it or to suspend it until next year, December of 2022. Then we're going to have to do this all over again. Why do we have to do this every year? Then we also have to do this annual budget for the government every year, which the government's going to shut down in 7 days if we don't come to an agreement for that. It's absurd that they have to do this every year. It's crazy that why are we doing this every year? It's way too short of a time frame to have to go through this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I mean, and it's just every year it's Republicans versus Democrats, Republicans versus Democrats, Democrats versus Republicans, and it's just like they never can get along. Doesn't matter who's president. If it's a Republican president, Democrat president, they're never united as one. I mean, we are somewhat on this channel. I feel like together in this channel, we're as united as we can get. You read our comments, and we're pretty much one big family here. But Congress and man, they are never ever. I mean, you could just see that it's just all Democrats and all Republicans just voting completely different ways, almost all the time. It was a miracle that physical infrastructure package was passed by Republicans and Democrats. It's one of the few votes that has recently had Republicans and Democrats together, which, by the way, is going to be voted on Monday, maybe supposed to be voted on Monday. And that's even under threat because we have some Democrats saying that if the stimulus package isn't passed before then, that they're not going to vote for the physical infrastructure package. They're going to vote no on it, which means that the physical infrastructure package could fail. And then we're having some moderate Democrats is saying if the physical infrastructure package fails, that they might not vote for the stimulus package down the road. Nancy Pelosi said today that they're not going to put the stimulus package up for vote until everybody is on board with that. Yeah, so you can see how this is a big problem because you have all these intricate pieces that you have to put in. It's a huge chess match that is very convoluted. It's very complex because all these little pieces, you move one piece and it changes the whole board, And you have, like, for example, you take the SALT tax, the state and local tax deduction. You have some Democrats from high tax states that are saying if you don't remove the SALT tax deduction, there's a tax limit on it of $10,000 that high tax states like New York, New Jersey, California, some middle income people pay a high amount of taxes, and they pay state and local taxes of over $10,000 in there, and they can't deduct it from their taxes. And they're like, they don't think it's fair because they've paid that tax for state and local and property taxes, but yet they don't get to deduct it on their taxes. But then on the other side of the coin, that people say, well, if we raise that limit to over $10,000, then rich people get to deduct it. You know, millionaires and multimillionaires and billionaires get a huge tax deduction. So then progressives are saying, well, if you remove that, then we're letting rich people, billionaires and stuff, get this huge tax break. So then other people are going to drop out and not vote for the stimulus package if you remove it. So we have some people saying, if you remove it, I'm not going to vote for it. And then if you have other people say, if you remove it, then I am not going to vote for it. So, you know, two people saying you have to remove it, and other people saying if you do remove it, then I'm not going to vote for it. I know that it gets a little confusing there, but basically you have people demanding, some people demanding remove it, and some people demanding if you do remove it, I'm not going to vote for it. That's why it's not just like, hey, let's vote on it today, if they don't have the votes for it. And then we have Joe Manchin demanding that the stimulus package be half the size, and you need his vote. You need every single senator. And then you have this physical infrastructure package that is going to be voted on here in 4 days. If it's going to be voted on in 4 days, that's the set date. And we have some people saying that they really shouldn't vote on it in 4 days. It might not pass. Some people saying that the stimulus package is supposed to be voted on first. They don't know if it's going to be ready. And then the government's going to shut down in 7 days. They don't have an agreement for that between the Republicans. And they can pass that through reconciliation, the government shutdown and the debt limit ceiling, but they don't know if that's going to be ready to do through reconciliation. Remember, the reconciliation process is this big, huge process. And remember that the reconciliation bill, the stimulus package, it's going to be 5,000 some pages. And you have to go through all these steps and these hours of debate. And, you know, it's not just let's vote on it and then vote on it in the Senate. That's not how the reconciliation process works. I mean, if you remember from the third stimulus check package, you know, there's stages of voting. The reconciliation process, it's a process. It's not just hey, let's vote on it like they did with that vote in the House, which was either yesterday or like 36 hours ago now at this point. So, yeah, and raising the debt limit would be a lot easier. Like they showed on that video. What did that show? They did it like 70 some times. And if we don't raise the debt limit ceiling, then the government is going to start defaulting, which has never been done. The government's going to run out of money and not be able to pay its bills, and that could cause a financial collapse. And when you add up all these things together, just think about all those things we just talked about here in 2 minutes. That's a lot for anybody's plates. And in some ways, it's just, how can we possibly be dealing with all this here within a week? But yet, here we are. You can't make this stuff up. You literally cannot make this stuff up. But yet, that is what's going on. And it's like it's all come down to basically 1 week of time here at the end of September that we have to deal with it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make sure to subscribe down below. I will keep you up to date with everything. Subscribing is completely free to do so. Remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They have come to a deal with the pay-fors on the $3.5 trillion stimulus package. So they are moving forward. They are putting the bill together and getting closer and closer. So we'll have to see how close they get here by the end of the month. If they can pass it by the end of the month, we'll see. We'll see. They're getting close. We'll see how close they get. I'll keep you up to date. You can click this video here to watch my newest stimulus check video next. And this video is how there could be a $1,400 stimulus check in this next package. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video.